Good evening, everyone. And it's wonderful to have everybody here tonight for tonight's town hall. I'm John Lassiter, and I'm honored to host this town hall with my good friend, Sonja Nichols. Beverly and I have gotten to know Sonja and her husband, Richard, both personally and professionally, from my time back on Charlotte City Council and Beverly's time with good friend Charlotte. And she's an incredibly involved person in our community. She's been advocating for our needs for decades. She's an accomplished businesswoman, a published author, an active community leader, volunteer, and just a tremendous model for all of us. We're lucky to have someone like her offer herself for service. Through years of service, she's served to help bridge the diverse community, bring it together, and she brings her skills and experience to work for us in Raleigh. I'm excited to have her here. So let me take a moment. We've got a short video I'd like to show about Sonja and learn more of a personal story and kind of things that I know about her before we start taking questions for the town hall.
My mom was 15 years old when I was born. She and my dad were addicts. So I was raised by my aunt and my grandparents. My grandfather was an Army sergeant in World War II, and after the war, he and my grandmother ran a grocery store in a minority San Francisco neighborhood. They believed it was their mission to help their struggling community, so they regularly extended credit to folks, allowing payment on the 1st and 15th of every month so their neighbors could feed their families. That's where I learned about helping people. That's where service to others was ingrained in me. I went to college, married the love of my life, and began to work in the private sector. But it left me unfulfilled. So I quit my job with IBM and started my own small business that today helps small startups get going. I have founded or served in numerous charitable organizations here in the Charlotte area that are focused on strengthening our children and inspiring and developing our next generation of female leaders. I believe this life is a gift from God, that there is more in this world that unites us than divides us, and that our community is best served when every citizen has the opportunity to harness his or her potential and live their American dream. I'm Sonja Nichols. I'm a wife, mother, small business owner, member of the greater Charlotte community for nearly 20 years, and your candidate for the North Carolina State Senate. Please learn more by joining me at sonjaforsenate.com.
Sonja, you have a unique and inspiring story. We're all excited to hear about what you think you bring to the North Carolina Senate. Tell us more about where you're focused and what you're going to try to do once you're elected.
Well, thank you, John, and thank you, everyone, for your willingness to come in and sit a spell and listen to my story. I'm excited to be here. I know a lot of people do a double take when they hear that I am conservative, Black, Republican, and they do a double take. They want to figure out, so what is she about? What is she thinking? What is it that she wants to do to support our community? And so I appreciate this opportunity to speak to each of you, allow you to ask me some questions so that I can make you feel a little more comfortable about why I would be a great representative, not only for Charlotte-Mecklenburg, but for you in Raleigh.
Well, this is a chance for folks to ask you some questions. I know, and Beverly knows kind of what you bring to the table. This is a chance for people to learn more directly from you in this virtual environment. Let me a few ground rules. So this is an opportunity for people to ask questions. There's a chat feature on the Zoom. Go to the bottom of the screen. If you have a question, put your question in there. I'll pull that up. I've got several already in the queue. So I'm going to start working through those questions as we go. If we cannot get your question tonight, at the end of this evening's town hall, there'll be a little screen. You'll see a chance to connect with the campaign. Sonja will get back to you directly and answer your question. So with that, you ready to get going?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's get going. Well, let me ask the first question. And this is on everybody's mind. With the pandemic and the impact on our community, and our state has been incredibly significant. All of us have been touched. As our next state senator for District 37, what would you do to ensure our economy can rebuild at the same time keeping our citizens safe?
Well, let me first start off by saying I am very happy about the work that has been done as each of us try to overcome this pandemic. And it's new to everyone. I think that there should be some room for accommodation. I don't think any of us have ever lived through anything like this before. I think moving forward, my biggest concerns, if I were to have any, is how do we move forward, not only safely, but how do we get our economy back up and running? So I think the first and foremost thing we have to do is make sure that we are safe and that we are sound. I believe that a lot of work has already been done by the General Assembly, Republican-led General Assembly, in making sure that we were in a financially stable position going into this. No one saw this pandemic coming, but because of the good work that our General Assembly has been doing over the last 9 to 10 years, in terms of making sure we had our fiscal house in order, we at least had a rainy day fund that could meet some of the needs that we had going into this it's a very grave time, and I want to begin to think of the positive things that we can do moving forward. If I had a big concern, it is about all of the businesses that have been shut down because of this pandemic. My biggest concern are the number of businesses, especially those that are owned, minority owned, women owned, that were shut down, and they won't reopen. I think it's been predicted that 60% of those businesses that closed during this pandemic will not reopen. So I would like to see us get together a program that would allow us to reopen North Carolina, not only in just a safe way, which is important, but how do we then reimagine what businesses could look like? So we know that there's all the service sector businesses to consider. We have to do that. But what I've already started doing is working with a couple of our current senators and talking about what kind of other business can we bring to North Carolina. And what we're talking about are things as it relates to manufacturing. Manufacturing would be great. I think that we want to make sure that North Carolina and all of the United States, in fact, are not left and held hostage the way we were during this pandemic, when we needed PPEs, when we needed testing materials, when we needed all sorts of products to get through this pandemic, and we had to wait and order things from another country. I don't want us to be held in that kind of position ever again. So we know that there's opportunity, not only just here in Charlotte, but we could have maybe public-private partnerships, or even more than that, big city and strong rural partnerships where we could open up manufacturing. We have facilities that are already in existence that we could reopen, that we could reimagine, that we could retrofit to produce some of the things that we need. Then perhaps North Carolina would become that state that everyone else in the country would look to provide any of the types of products that we would need moving forward if something like this pandemic should occur again. And so I think that we have to think outside of the box. There are certain things we've always done. What are some new things we could do? I think that manufacturing could be one of those ways that we get our state back up and running.
I've got a question that kind of relates to the same topic, and it really looks at education, which is a foundation for getting a trained workforce. What are your views on education funding, in particular, and teacher pay in North Carolina?
So I think it's very interesting that we continue to have this conversation concerning education and how much everyone seems to think we don't spend enough on education. So here are a couple of facts, and you can just look at the budget. In our general fund, 60% of that fund goes to education. 60% of the general fund goes to education. Now, the 22% goes to health and human services. The 13% goes to law enforcement and public safety. And then there's the rest for the general fund, general government. Let me mention again, 60% of our budget goes to education. So we are funding education. Now, there was a time back in the Great Recession, back in 2009, between 2009 and 2011, where our funding in education did go down. It was a recession, it was crazy. So it did go down. But since then, since 2011, our educational spending has increased every single year. Every single year. Not only has that increased, but our per pupil allocation has increased every single year since 2015. So North Carolina is doing right by our educational field here in this particular state. For some reason, people have latched onto the narrative that it's been decimated, and unfortunately, we're not actually going and just looking at the tangible, measurable records where the information is. I would say that's the first thing. As it relates to teacher pay raises, I am a supporter of teacher pay raises. I'm supporting the teachers and the hard work and dedication that they provide every single day to our students. There was a period of time where North Carolina's teachers were ranked 47 out of everyone else in the United States in terms of teacher pay. That has changed. We have increased our teacher pay. We now rank 30th in the country. And in fact, for the Southeastern United States, we rank #2 for teacher pay. Now, as it relates to pay raises, I think that it should be noted that my opponent has voted against teacher pay raises the last 8 times it has come up in the General Assembly. He has voted against it 8 times. No one seems to bring that up. No one seems to be dinging him on it, but it is a fact. Again, you just go to the General Assembly, just go to the North Carolina legislative records. He votes against this every single time, and we don't hold his feet to the fire on it. I understand his perspective is it's not enough. But as a fundraiser, I never leave money on the table. So when I made a gift or an offer, I take that offer and then I come back. And I think what we do is we create a system where we come back, where we're always looking for raises for our teachers, but just don't disregard it because you're trying to follow partisan lines and leave our teachers hanging. I feel like they've been used as pawns in a lot of the work that's being done in the legislature.
We got another question about a pretty difficult issue, and that is affordable housing. What do you think ought to be the response from the state levels, oftentimes seen as more of a local issue, but many times the state has some capital funding that can be facilitated and leveraged because a lot of the grants come from the federal government through the state. So what's your ideas about how to create more affordable housing in our community?
So I think that conversation, I'm just surprised that we're not a little more gutsy in what we do both locally and on a state level as we address affordable housing. I think what I am a little concerned about is when there is a desire or a need or a demand, there is money to be made. So I'm thinking in terms of low-cost items. So low-cost restaurants. You want the dollar menu at McDonald's. There's a demand for that. And so it's being met. We have neighborhood stores, low-cost goods, Family Dollar. There's a demand for that. So there's money to be made. I think first thing I would address as it relates to affordable housing, particularly in our Charlotte area, is I would look at the codes, the rules, the regulations that we have on the books here in Charlotte and in Mecklenburg. Oh, well, I guess also the state. We have so many codes, so many regulations that makes it, it makes it difficult to produce this low cost housing because we have to meet all of these standards. I think if we could remove some of the regulations and some of the things that are required, as long as the housing is safe and functioning, that it's affordable for our people. There is a demand. I see that there's got to be an opportunity to meet that demand. I think that there could be a private-public partnership with both the state and our local government and private investors. So we have to be willing to think outside of the box. We have to learn to be a little more creative. So for an example, and there's no one size fits all. I think we need to consider all of the options. Right now on Independence Boulevard, there is a project called Independence Place. So it's a hotel It's across the street from the Bojangles Arena. And a gentleman named Travis, who owns R Investments, bought that hotel with a combination of work with the federal government in terms of the SBA and the opportunity zones with our city, and his own friend is an investor out of Florida. They bought that hotel. They're renovating that hotel as a social project, an extended stay home, where we have right now, I think he said between 20 and 30 disabled veterans who are a little down on their luck. They're going through their own type of rehab process. They're helping to rehab each of those individual rooms in that hotel, and are making them these wonderful extended stay apartments. The idea is, while they are being rehabilitated, they are learning a skill set that they can then use to get a job when the project is over. It's like a 90-day project for each of the individuals. That's a combination of both state and local government and private investments to address affordable housing in what I think is a very creative way. I think we need to do more thinking like that. I think that there should be grants on the table offered by the state that could help to encourage projects like that. So I think the concern just has to be making sure that as we come up with these creative ideas, that we have developed a really good relationship with my very fiscally sound right-hand side of the General Assembly to push these projects through.
You know, that points to a question I got just a moment ago, and that is this ability to work collectively with local leaders or regional leaders. You spent a lot of time in your career in Charlotte and in the region, finding ways to kind of bridge across gaps. How do you see your role changes as a member of the North Carolina Senate, working with local leaders trying to solve problems that may be local or maybe statewide?
I think one of the things that God has allowed me to be able to do is be a bridge to develop relationships with people who are not exactly like me. And when I say that, when I came to Charlotte, I was new and I didn't know anyone. And I decided to just jump in. I have always been that individual who would show up. I knew how to befriend everyone. I think it was important to me that I demonstrate that I wanted more than just a friendship. I wanted to develop a relationship that would carry forward, and no matter whatever else it is that we would do throughout the city, state, or what have you, just long-term friendships that we could continue to do the work that would make our city stronger, make our county stronger, make our state stronger. I think the thing that I could bring to the General Assembly is I am extremely unique. I think you can look at me and tell I'm going to be extremely unique on the right-hand side of that aisle. However, before I've gotten there, I've already begun, John, to develop relationships with the senators there in the General Assembly, because it was important to me, God willing, and I go to the Senate, I wanted to be able to work with individuals, and I need them to feel comfortable with me. And I think a lot of times we have perceptions of others. We will cast onto others what we think about them versus giving them an opportunity to really get to know us. And I think one of the things that I've been able to do here in Charlotte is develop relationships. Here's a perfect example. As you look at the unrest that's going on in our city, before a lot of this started happening, it's not even our city, in our country, I had already started having relationships with people that didn't look like me. One of my dear friends that I didn't know is Dee Dee Dalrymple. And she and I didn't know each other from a hole in the wall. But what we had determined was we wanted to get to know each other. We wanted to develop a relationship. So we started meeting together, having coffee first and asking each other questions. That moved on to lunch. And then we decided to start a whole dinner group where we would bring my friends and she would bring her friends. And there was nothing to the event but to get to know one another. I think we've got to do more stuff like that. And it's more than black and white. We have to do the same thing across the aisles. I think that is something that's unique about me that I can bring to the General Assembly.
I've got a question about furniture manufacturing, but I think it really applies to all manufacturing in the
Okay.
state. What do we need to do to kind of save a lot of those jobs that we lost to other countries that affect so many folks in our working and middle class? And you got ideas about how to bring those jobs back, grow jobs, build our trades to strengthen a really important part of our economy.
Okay. I think one of the things that we as individuals, we've got to be serious about wanting to help each other. And when I say that, I think as we bring those jobs back, there's got to be a demand that says, you know what, I'm going to buy American. I'm going to support my neighborhood business. I'm going to support that neighborhood store. I'm going to support that neighborhood manufacturer. We as citizens of this state and citizens of this country, we have got to make the decision that the business down the street is important to our community. And in order for that to happen, we have to buy products from that individual. I think one of the things that we do, and I appreciate that the president has focused on that. I appreciate that the president's opponent has focused on that, which is build American, buy American. So we have got to change as a country, as a people, our mindset on how we support our local businesses. We have to be deliberate about it. You're trying to figure out, well, what would be the incentive? The incentive is if those are your relatives working at that manufacturing plant, then they'll have a job. Not only will they have a job, they can take care of themselves, they can take care of their family, they'll have health care, they'll have benefits. And so, you create a whole community. Well, now the community is strengthened. There are nonprofits in that community. They will be taken care of because that particular company is now there, is providing all types of jobs and all types of benefits to everyone that's there. So I think it's more than we're looking for, well, the government needs to tell us what to do. We as the individuals, we have to decide. This is what we want. And we know this is what's best for our country. This is what will strengthen our country. This is what will strengthen our state. I think there's incentives that we could use through the General Assembly to help make sure that if someone is willing to creatively invest in and bring manufacturing back here, that we make that easy for them, that we get rid of rules and regulations that would keep them from building that business. Okay, so I went on and on. I'm kind of passionate about us bringing manufacturing and business back to North Carolina. If I had to pick, that's going to be my top two things that I want to take care of: education, bringing manufacturing back to North Carolina.
I think you're right on track. Let me deal with a very, very difficult subject for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a unique perspective as a Black woman. Watching the protest, watching the conversations about defunding the police. You can't turn the TV on now. And tonight we've got, a protest and a police shooting in Louisville. What should we be thinking about in terms of how we manage that, how we assure the community that our leaders have got us on this, and they're in charge of doing the right thing?
And so, yeah, I would have to tell you, John, it is very difficult. And I think a lot of us that are watching this, if we're willing to be honest and admit it, I think we're kind of worn out. It's trying, it's difficult. I would say as a Black woman, we know that there are some issues that have not been addressed. They continue to not be addressed in our communities. And to be honest, you were just trying to figure out, so what can we do to get over this hump? I would say that we look at the systemic things that have been going on for hundreds of years. We look at the continued barriers that have been in place that we can't seem to get over. They've continued to continue, if that's such a thing. But as I step back, I understand the protest. I understand why people want to express their frustration and their desire for better. I understand it. If we're peaceful and orderly, I 100% I 100% understand it and support it. What I cannot and what I will not support is the total destruction of other people's property. I cannot support the fighting. I cannot support the looting. I know there are other people trying to justify it. I cannot, I will not. At some point, we have got to have clean hands as we're moving forward. I do feel that there needs to be some reforms as it relates to policing in our communities. I do believe that there are a lot of people that need to come to bear, from our mayors and our city councilmen or aldermen, just wherever you are, our local officials, our police unions. I think everyone and members of our community need to come together to have the conversation. What do we do to move forward? What I will say, however, I love the police. I love our law enforcement officers. I have relatives that are law enforcement officers, and I know the tremendous amount of work they do every single day going out to protect our community. So I can tell you, I will not be supporting defunding the police. Now, if you want to reimagine some other ways that we can police our communities, fine. I'm not defunding the police. And I'm trying not to crack a joke, but I will tell you, if something pops off at my house, I'm not calling you, I'm calling the police. So I need them to be fully engaged and prepared when they come to come take care of me. I want the same thing for you. I want the same thing for everyone else in our communities. I think of all the things, John, I would say, all of us want to be safe. White people want to be safe. Black people want to be safe. Brown people want to be safe. All of us want to be safe. We all want to have a very good relationship with our police departments and our all of our law enforcement authorities. We just want to have a good relationship. We have to have conversations with them. I would consider, if you all are familiar with a gentleman named Sean Corbett. He has a barbershop inside the Walmart on Wilkerson Boulevard. Sean and Sheriff Gary McFadden started an organization called Cops and Barbers. And the whole idea behind that went back to the Keith Lamont shootings, where they determined there needed to be relationships, conversations with the police and their communities that they're taking care of. And so they developed that program. It's received national attention. And the whole idea is we've got to have a dialogue. We've got to feel comfortable and safe with one another. We've got to go across the aisles. We've got to go across the train tracks, whatever we've got to get past whatever it is that we have all of us have put up as barriers to our conversations with one another. And I think we can do it. I'm thinking positive. I'm thinking, I know God is going to watch out for us as we just move forward. I hate that we're going through what we're going through, but my prayer is that we're going to be better on the other side.
I think we all are very, very hopeful. One of the programs that you have, you've supported opportunity scholarships. I think those help bridge some of these issues, trying to understand people who don't have the same things that you or I might have. Talk about your support for that program and how it kind of affects your overall view about education policy.
I am a big supporter of education. I do believe it is one of the pillars that will help to bring all people up. I think that it's one of the things that will help to even the playing field for a lot of us. I support the opportunity scholarships because I want all children to be able to have an opportunity to get the best education possible. It is our constitutional right, especially for the state of North Carolina, is to have a good education. I support good public education. I support good private education. I support good charter school education. I support good alternative school educations. Whatever is best for that child, that's the education I want that child to have. I am a big proponent for the opportunity scholarships because there are some children that will be in an at-risk community, maybe in a school system. Let's start with Charlotte-Mecklenburg school system, which is unfortunately the most segregated school system in North Carolina. I want those children who are in any of the schools that happen to be the at-risk or failing schools, I want their parents to know they have an opportunity to take their child and put them in a better situation. If it's in a better public school, great. If it's in a better private school, great. I know there are those who do not support them. I would say that the current senator has worked hard to get rid of opportunity scholarships, as well as all of charter school funding, which I think is unfortunate, because I want to make sure our kids have every single opportunity. The opportunity scholarships provide that. I would address, because someone asked me about it, and I just want to be clear. I have talked to individuals that are at the private schools, and they have assured me if the money follows that child, and if that child comes to one of their private schools, they are willing to meet all of the other needs that that child would have, which includes any food scarcity issues, transportation, whatever else that child needs. The private schools have assured me, the individuals that I've talked to, that they will meet those needs. And so I believe that the funding should follow the child. It should be about the child first. I don't want to step in anything, but the kids first, everyone else after that.
Got a question. You mentioned your opponent, and I won't call him by name. We all know who he is. But what are the policy differences between you and your opponent, and why should someone say you're the right person to represent District 37?
Well, besides being cuter than my opponent, what I would add is I feel like my opponent has had a position of privilege, a position of power, a position of persuasion. He's had the opportunity to do a lot of things that would be beneficial to Charlotte and to Mecklenburg County, but he hasn't been able to provide results. I've already discussed that he's voted against all of the different teacher pay raises. He's promised that he's going to give them, but he hasn't produced any. He's talked about Medicaid expansion. While I don't support it, I support the Medicaid transformation. He didn't produce it. He's in a position to have relationships with people in the General Assembly to get things done for Charlotte, for Mecklenburg County, and he has not been able to do it. He has not been able to develop the relationships you need to get work done, to get legislation passed that would be beneficial to all of us. It's one thing to be able to be on social media and post that you're always fighting the Republican-led General Assembly. And I guess for some people, that's great. But I think for the rest of us, we want results. And if you are our representative, we need you to go to work and bring home results, tangible, measurable, things that we can look at and say, yeah, my representative brought those things home to me. I think the difference is I've always had to produce results. I've always had as a mindset that if I'm going in, I have a goal, I have some things that I need to attain, and I need to bring back tangible, measurable results that you could look at, that you could either hold in your hand, you could point to and say, that's a result. I think in every organization I've served in, if given a goal, we've met it, we've exceeded it, we've always succeeded, because I want to produce and I want to provide tangible, measurable results. My biggest concern about the current gentleman that's our senator is that he has the position of power, he has the position of privilege, he has the position of persuasion. We needed him for the last 6 years to use all of these great things that people think they know about him to bring things home for us. I can point to tangible, measurable results in everything that I've participated in, that someone received a benefit when I participated. I want to do the same thing for us in Raleigh. I'm already working on relationships with the individuals there, with the senators there, so that when I do show up, I can hit the ground running, producing and bringing home things to Charlotte, to Mecklenburg County. I think I will be able to show you better than I can tell you. But if you look at my record, I have a record that shows you I've done the work, I bring home results. I can't say that about the current senator.
You mentioned Medicaid expansion and your sense of what ought to happen there versus, it's a national issue that is being dealt with in every state and not necessarily, along partisan lines. What do you think we ought to be doing in North Carolina, and what will you try to do once elected?
Well, the beautiful thing is, I know it's been a long time, but for at least the last several years, the General Assembly has been working on Medicaid transformation, and it finally passed, and the governor finally signed off on it. Medicaid for all, I don't think is the most beneficial thing for North Carolina. And what I have been following that I hear very few people talk about is the Medicaid for all as it related to the state of New York. And I think a lot of people don't know this, but in March, Governor Cuomo very quietly got rid of Medicaid for all for New York. He had to get rid of it. It had ballooned beyond anything that they had imagined. 1 in 3 individuals in New York, 1 in 3 of the citizens of New York were on the Medicaid for All program. He had to get out of it because he was having to grapple with a $6 billion deficit. $4 billion of it was related to the Medicaid for All. And I think what people kind of are not really grasping, when you say Medicaid for All, that means it's Medicaid for all. That means every bill that comes through must be taken care of, must be paid. And so he had a deficit. And we like to say, oh, well, the federal government is going to give us this money. We pay the federal government. We pay those taxes. So you're still paying that. And whatever the federal government doesn't give, then the state of North Carolina has to bear that burden. Well, then if the state of North Carolina can't bear fully the burden, then the city of Charlotte, the county of Mecklenburg County, we would have to bear that burden. I think the beauty of the Medicaid transformation program is that it would allow a managed care model that would provide wraparound services for those who are on Medicaid. It's not only just taking care of their medical needs, but we're also looking at things like substance abuse. They're looking at there's other disabilities, mental health. Those things are part of the wraparound program that I think will be very beneficial to the communities that have to be a part of that particular program. I think that we ought to give that program a chance. Not only are we providing medical services for that are much needed, but it also allows our state the opportunity to financially manage this. I'm still looking at the state of New York and what they went through. And there are other states that are getting ready to follow suit. So I'll tell everybody, start paying attention to Oklahoma and Washington, because they're having to grapple with the same exploding expenses. Of course, there are things that are proposed and no one saw them coming, and they explode. And I'm glad that the governor agreed to at least sign into legislation the Medicaid transformation, and let's see how that works. I'll be supporting that.
Good. We got a couple questions kind of about voters and how and who people get to vote for, which is real important for you in about 38 days.
Yes.
There's a couple issues that kind of are a hot button in North Carolina. That's redistricting.
Yes.
And your district is brand new, been dramatically redrawn from what it was 2 years ago. And a lot of people are talking about whether we should vote by mail, the process by which people vote. What are your general thoughts about what changes are appropriate? What changes should we be thinking about as we make sure everyone feels like their vote counts?
I think that everyone better make sure that they vote this year, that you will not have an excuse for not voting. I think every opportunity has been made, has been presented that would allow you to vote safely from your home. So you have absentee ballots. I understand some people get like 6 absentee ballot applications because they're getting them from all types of organizations. But there's no excuse for them not to be able to complete that application, get it notarized, and then send it back in. Early voting. I think it's always amazing to me when I hear that people are disenfranchised from voting. When I think about when I grew up, you could only vote on one day. It was one. And we were out in droves. I watched people out in droves voting. We only had one day. We didn't have early voting. We have early voting now. So I'm hoping people take advantage of that. And, you know, if you're old school, you will be there on November 3rd, because that's going to be a fun thing to do. I'm encouraging everyone to get out and vote. I think if I were to make a consideration as to which one do I think is best, I'm going to tell you, I'm literally physically going in. I'm going in. I know some people will trust the mail system and some won't. I'm physically John. I'm going to be standing, whatever, October the 15th, I'll be standing there with bated breath, waiting for the door to open, and I'm voting in.
When you think about once you're elected,
Mm-hmm.
have you got kind of a plan for what you want to accomplish in your first 30 days, 90 days, 100 days?
John, I would say my first 30 days, the most important thing is I want to go in and I need to listen. I want to get the lay of the land. I want to understand who the players are. There are some that are in power. There are some that are in charge, and there are some that are in power. And that's two different things. I think it's important that I get to understand the systems and how they work. For those that are part of organizations, or you're in leadership, or you're in charge of a project, you all know how it feels. You get ready to open up and you start talking about whatever that new project is, and you have that new person that shows up, and they're going to tell you everything. They're smarter than you. They know better than you. They just got there. They want to tell you everything to do. I have to admit, that person gets on my nerves. I don't want to be that person. So my idea is I want to go in the first 30 days, John, and I want to understand how things work in our legislature. It's one thing for those of us on the outside, the doors, thinking it should work a certain way. I have to admit, going through this process, I do have a completely newfound respect for those who choose to serve in public office. It's a completely different beast. It's not as easy as we would all like to think it is. And I know we crack jokes amongst ourselves about what we think about politicians. I have to admit, I do have a newfound respect for them. I do think in order to be effective, I need to have relationships. And so that first 30 days is not only just getting to understand the system, but it's going in and developing great relationships, great friendships. I am happy to show on my website the number of senators that have already endorsed me because I'm already establishing relationships with them. I want to be able to be effective in my first term. I think in order to do that, I have to have relationships with people. I think that it would be wonderful if the current legislators we have that represent our county were a little more effective in having great relationships with the General Assembly. And it's not one-sided. I'm sure it's a lot of mess going both ways. I just want to be able to be that one individual that bridges the gap for our city and our county when I get to Raleigh.
Well, when you get to Raleigh, have you got some thoughts about how you will try to get connected with your constituents? Oftentimes people, they head up I-85 and forget how to get home. What is your thoughts about how people can follow what you're trying to do? They can communicate with you, how your office may be operating.
I think so. A couple of the things that I have considered, John. One of the things that I learned in my years of being a member of the Women's Impact Fund, and that was one of the best training grounds I've ever been a part of, in learning how to work across the aisle, across the bridge, across the railroad tracks, with all types of different individuals. One of the things that I think that we did very well with the Women's Impact Fund is have a form that would allow individuals to give us information, and it's our LOI process that would allow individuals to have great ideas, things that they would like to do in the community, and they would send that information to us. We would just go through a process, and then we would take the time to actually read through each of those LOIs to determine what are some of the great ideas that are here in our community that could be effective, that would be impactful, and that we could get behind. I would like to do something very similar. I would love for people to be able to send in to me, so these are my ideas. These are the things I would like to share. I think the other thing that I would like to do, the town halls. I don't know the last time I've been to a town hall. I don't know the last time a politician has actually had one that I could attend. I would say at least one or two of our US congressional representatives have held them, but very few people hold them. I would like to bring that back. And as I sat there and I said that, I'm just imagining when you always have that individual that jumps up on the table and screams and hollers at you. I understand why some people stopped having them, but I think we have to do stuff like that again. I'm sure people like to post things on social media. I would prefer not to do that. You can hide behind a screen. I like more of the face-to-face conversation, and I can really get a feel for why this is so important to you and why you're passionate about this particular idea.
Well, Sonja, I tell you, we're about out of time.
You hate to tell me that? I didn't talk you to death?
Yeah, you've done great. But we've got a few more questions we won't get to tonight. But like I mentioned, you'll have a chance to post those on the campaign website when we kind of move back to a static screen and follow back up. But what else you want to kind of leave with the folks who are here tonight about your thoughts and maybe things you get a chance to cover when you were kind of going through the Q&A?
Mm-hmm. I would say of all the things that I'd like to say, well, first of all, thank you for all of you who were willing to participate in this process and watch me. I have to tell you, I am a great talker. I have a lot to say. This is very, I want to say, nerve-wracking. And I want to share that with you. It is because I want to say the things to you that would give you every indication that I really have our best interest at heart. I want you to know that God willing and the creek don't rise, that I'm gonna go to Raleigh and I will truly be your representative. I feel like I've done a lot here in Charlotte. I feel a true representative of this city. I have worked hard in this city, and it's not for me. And I think a lot of the organizations that I've participated in and a lot of the work I've done, it's for you. It's for the individuals that are in our community. I want to continue that. I want to continue that for us in Raleigh. I think the second thing I would love to say is we're less than 40 days away from what is going to be definitely one of the biggest elections of our lifetime. And I want you to go out. But while we're looking at all of the national things, I think I want everyone to then begin to come back and look at local. The local elections are what affect your everyday life. Things like affordable housing and Medicaid transformation, your taxes, education, those are local. And individuals like me that are running want to represent you and take care of those things that affect your life directly. And so I'm asking you for your support. I'm asking you not only for your vote, but also for those of you that feel so inclined, I would really love your financial support. I want to be able to get out more of this information to other individuals. Every penny counts as we try to disseminate throughout my 55 precincts just what I feel like I can do for us in Mecklenburg County. I want to represent you. Now, you have a lot of people that are representing you, but they haven't brought you anything back. The one thing I know I can do is I can produce. I will bring you back tangible, measurable results that you can hold me accountable for. I want you to give me that chance. So go vote. And if you look on the link that was sent out, you can go to my website at www.sonjaforsenate.com. You can find out more about me, and you can absolutely make a contribution right there. Every penny counts, and I appreciate it.
Well, Sonja, thank you so much for taking time to join us tonight. You've been candid, you've been thoughtful, you've shown how prepared you are for the role. I'm excited that you've put yourself out for public service. I know personally how hard that is.
You know.
And particularly, I can't imagine how hard it is during the middle of a pandemic. But you've kept your spirits up, you've kept your drive, and you're in the home stretch. So keep working at it as we kind of get closer and closer to Election Day. With that, we're concluding for tonight. I think when I finish, they're going to bring a screen up that will let you kind of see how to connect with the campaign. As Sonja says, a way for you to learn more about her, a place to communicate with her directly, and most importantly, a chance to help provide the money she's going to need to run a campaign in the closing days. So thanks everyone for joining us tonight. Sonja, thank you for your willingness to serve. I really do appreciate everybody being with us. Everybody have a great night. God bless and be safe.
Thank you. God bless.